It was a gray December afternoon in Upper Burrell Township, Pennsylvania, the kind that feels heavy with silence. Outside a small house on Garvis Ferry Road, a red, older model car idled in the driveway. Inside the house, Brianna Jade Hughes hugged her mother one last time. She said she'd be back soon. She was going to get help. Then she stepped outside, closed the door behind her, and drove away. The engine faded into the silence. She never returned, and what happened next would haunt an entire town. Before we uncover what really happened to Brianna Hughes, take a moment to share, subscribe, and hit the notification bell. It helps more people hear her story and maybe, one day, find the truth. Brianna had just been released from jail earlier that day, December 15th, 2016. Her mother had picked her up, given her clean clothes, and reminded her that it wasn't too late to start again. Brianna agreed. She was 32, small in frame, barely 5'3", with hazel eyes that could shift between bright and distant. A tattoo on her chest read "Breathe." She said she planned to enter rehab to turn a corner. Her mother watched as the unfamiliar red car rolled up. Behind the wheel sat a white woman with curly blonde hair, heavy-set, maybe in her 30s or 40s. Brianna seemed to know her. She grabbed her bag, waved goodbye, and climbed into the passenger seat. The car reversed slowly down the driveway and disappeared toward Route 366. That was the last time anyone saw her. At first, her family assumed she'd call once she settled in. Days passed, then weeks. No calls, no messages, nothing. Her phone went dark. The rehab center she was supposed to check into never saw her. And when police began tracing her movements, they realized no one even knew who the woman driving that red car was. Detectives would later say that Brianna was seen in Pittsburgh's Homewood neighborhood months before, but every lead stopped cold. The red car was never identified. No witnesses came forward. And for the Hughes family, that winter became the start of a nightmare that's lasted nearly a decade. Who was the woman in the driver's seat? Where did Brianna go after she left her mother's house? And how does someone vanish in broad daylight without a trace? What do you think happened the moment that car drove away? If you've seen something, know something, or remember anything from that day in December 2016, please contact the Upper Burrell Township Police Department at 724-335-0664. When Brianna didn't come home that night, her mother tried not to panic. She'd been through hard times before. Short disappearances, silent days, sudden reappearances. But something about this time felt different. The silence was too long. The air around the house felt wrong, like the world had shifted slightly and hadn't settled back. She called Brianna's phone, straight to voicemail, sent messages. No reply. The next morning, she tried again. Still nothing. By the third day, fear began to sink in. Brianna's mother drove through the neighborhoods her daughter sometimes visited, small corners of New Kensington, Arnold, and Homewood, asking people if they'd seen her. No one had. By December 20th, 2016, she went to the Upper Burrell Township Police Department and filed a missing persons report. It was 5 days since Brianna climbed into that red car. The officers took her statement, noting the description of the driver. A heavy-set white woman with curly blonde hair. The car, possibly a red Chevrolet Cavalier, early 2000s model. Detectives started reaching out to nearby jurisdictions, Allegheny County, Westmoreland County, Pittsburgh PD, hoping someone had seen the car. They also checked the local rehab centers. None had her name registered. Her probation officer hadn't heard from her either. What troubled police most was how quickly Brianna's trail went cold. There were no confirmed sightings, no phone records after that day, and no transactions. For someone who had always stayed in touch with her family, this silence was chilling. Her mother posted flyers, shared her photo online, begged for information. The image was haunting. A soft smile, tired eyes, and the word "breathe" visible just above her shirt. That tattoo became her identifier. Police learned she sometimes used the name Winter, a nickname from her teenage years. But even under that name, nothing surfaced. No arrests, no hospital visits, no social media logins. It was as if Brianna had vanished between two breaths of winter air. Her family held onto the belief that maybe she was alive somewhere, lost but reachable. Yet investigators privately began to fear something darker. Someone had picked Brianna up that afternoon, and that someone hadn't come forward. Could the key to this entire mystery lie with the unknown woman in the red car? Detectives started with what little they had, a description and a color. A red car, possibly a Chevrolet Cavalier, and a woman with curly blonde hair who no one in the Hughes family recognized. It wasn't much, but it was all they had. The first step was canvassing the neighborhood. Officers went door to door along Garvis Ferry Road, asking if anyone had seen that car on December 15, 2016. One neighbor remembered a red sedan driving slowly past the area that afternoon. Another thought they heard an engine idling for a while but never saw who was inside. None could identify a license plate. Investigators pulled traffic camera footage from nearby intersections, but this was rural Pennsylvania. Coverage was spotty. One camera captured a red blur heading toward Route 366, but the plate was unreadable. Police distributed a bolo, "Be on the lookout," to local departments, describing the car and the driver. Leads began trickling in. A woman matching that description was spotted near New Kensington weeks later. Another tip claimed she'd been seen outside a convenience store in Homewood, a neighborhood Brianna often visited. But none of these sightings led anywhere concrete. Police began to wonder if Brianna had met this woman while in jail or through mutual acquaintances. She'd been struggling with addiction, and rehab was supposed to be her next step. But what if the woman in the car wasn't taking her there? Detectives quietly checked rehab facilities around Pittsburgh and Westmoreland County. Not one had any record of Brianna checking in that week. No intake forms, no phone calls, no staff recalled her name. As days stretched into weeks, her family's anxiety hardened into something heavier, dread. Her mother couldn't sleep. "I keep seeing that car," she told a reporter years later. "It just drove away like nothing was wrong. I keep wondering if she looked back at me from that window." Police began expanding the search radius, hoping to locate the car or its driver. But red sedans were everywhere, and without a license plate or witness photo, every lead blurred into the next. Then one name surfaced, a woman known locally who drove a similar car and had connections in the same circles Brianna moved through. Detectives followed it closely, but when they found her, she swore she'd never met Brianna Hughes in her life. Was she telling the truth, or was she the last person to see Brianna alive? The woman police questioned said she didn't know Brianna Hughes, had never given her a ride, never even heard her name. On paper, she checked out. She had an alibi for December 15, 2016. Her car, though red, wasn't the same make or model Brianna's mother described. Still, investigators couldn't shake the feeling that something about her story felt rehearsed. Detectives spent weeks cross-checking her timeline, phone records, and vehicle registration. Nothing tied her directly to Brianna. The lead fizzled, but the gut feeling lingered. Someone out there knew more than they were saying. Meanwhile, Brianna's family kept pushing. Her mother called the police station daily, desperate for updates. Flyers with Brianna's photo and the word missing in bold black letters started appearing in grocery stores, gas stations, and bus stops across Allegheny and Westmoreland counties. People started sharing her story online, especially in local Facebook groups for missing persons. Then came a small development. A caller claimed to have seen a woman resembling Brianna walking along Frankstown Road in Pittsburgh's Homewood neighborhood, just weeks after she vanished. She was reportedly thin, wearing a hoodie, and with a woman who fit the same description as the red car driver. Police raced to verify it, but by the time they got there, the two women were gone. Still, that tip shifted the focus of the investigation. Detectives now believed Brianna might have made it to Pittsburgh, at least for a short while. They began coordinating with the Pittsburgh Bureau of Police, canvassing homeless shelters, motels, and recovery centers. But there were no solid hits. Months turned into a year. No body, no confirmed sightings, no verified communications. And as leads dried up, the Upper Burrell Township police chief made a quiet admission to local media. They feared foul play. He didn't believe Brianna simply walked away from her life. Not after planning to enter rehab. Not after promising her mother she'd call. She didn't just vanish, he said. Somebody out there knows what happened to her. Could that somebody still be driving free today? The same person who pulled into that driveway 9 years ago? What's your theory? Did Brianna ever make it to Pittsburgh? Or did something happen before she got there? Before we continue this investigation, make sure to like, share, and subscribe. It helps more people see Brianna's story and keeps her name alive. To understand how Brianna Hughes disappeared, detectives went back to the beginning, the day she was released from jail. It was December 15th, 2016, and Brianna had just completed a short sentence related to drug possession. Her mother was waiting to pick her up, relieved that she was finally getting another chance to start over. The plan, according to her family, was clear. Brianna would go home, collect some clothes, and then head to rehab. She told her mother she was ready to turn her life around. But investigators would later find that no formal rehab intake had been scheduled that day. It wasn't unusual. Sometimes people arranged placement once they arrived. But in Brianna's case, there was no paper trail at all. Her mother recalled that, after getting home, Brianna seemed calm, even hopeful. She took a shower, ate, and sat quietly for a while. Then, sometime in the afternoon, she received a phone call. Her mother didn't catch who it was from, but Brianna's tone changed. Within minutes, she said someone was coming to get her. When the red car arrived, she didn't seem frightened. She seemed expectant, almost as if this ride was part of her plan. That detail bothered detectives. Who was she planning to meet? They subpoenaed her phone records, but the trail went cold quickly. Her last known outgoing call was made earlier that morning. After that, nothing. It was possible she'd used another phone, maybe a prepaid one. Still, there was no trace of communication with the rehab facility she claimed to be heading to. Police reached out to former inmates and acquaintances who might have known her from jail. A few remembered Brianna talking about a woman who could help her get into treatment, someone who supposedly had connections in Pittsburgh, but no one knew her name. That piece of the puzzle, the woman who offered help, started to look like the missing link. Was she real? Or was she the same unknown driver who pulled into the Hughes driveway? By early 2017, detectives had little more than theories. Brianna's life before her disappearance had been fragile, marked by struggles. But she wasn't someone who simply vanished for months without a word. Her mother kept repeating one line to police. She told me she was coming right back. Could that phone call, the one she took just before leaving, hold the answer to everything? Investigators knew that phone call might be the thread that unraveled everything. It was the only unexplained event between Brianna's release and her disappearance. So, they pulled her phone logs from December 15, 2016, every incoming and outgoing number, every text. One entry stood out. A short call from a blocked number, just 20 minutes before the red car arrived. The call lasted less than 2 minutes. After that, no more activity. No texts. No data. Her phone either died or was turned off soon after she left. Detectives sent a subpoena to her service provider, hoping to trace the blocked call. The results came back vague. It had pinged from a cell tower in the New Kensington area, not far from where Brianna lived, but the number itself was unregistered, a burner phone. That detail made police uneasy. Whoever called her that day didn't want to be found. They began interviewing people who'd been in contact with Brianna before her arrest, old friends, acquaintances from the recovery community, even former cellmates. Some described her as hopeful but fragile. Others said she'd been worried about someone trying to help her get into a private rehab. One name kept surfacing, Amber. No one could give a last name, only that she was a woman with blonde hair who claimed to have resources in Pittsburgh. The more investigators heard the description, the more it sounded like the mysterious driver of that red car. But finding Amber was another problem. No one knew where she lived. There was no record of her working with any rehab center in Pennsylvania. Still, one witness told detectives that Brianna mentioned planning to stay a few nights in Homewood before entering treatment. That would become a crucial lead. Detectives checked bus routes and security cameras leading from Upper Burrell to Pittsburgh, but they found nothing. The car remained a ghost. By March 2017, the case had stalled again. The last confirmed moment of Brianna's life was her stepping into that car. Every detail after that was guesswork, until one witness came forward with something that reignited the search. He claimed he'd seen Brianna weeks later, alive, walking near Frankstown Avenue with a blonde woman. Could it really have been her? Or was it just another cruel coincidence? For months, investigators clung to a fragile hope that somewhere in Pittsburgh, Brianna Hughes might still be alive. It was a hope born from whispers, not proof. By early 2017, reports began circulating of possible sightings along Frankstown Road, a busy corridor cutting through the Homewood neighborhood, a place Brianna was known to visit before her disappearance. One caller claimed she'd seen a woman who looked just like her. Small, brown-haired, walking with another woman near a convenience store. But when police followed up, no surveillance footage confirmed it. Each sighting felt like a spark that quickly burned out. Detectives treated them seriously, but without video, photos, or physical evidence, they couldn't verify a single one. Eventually, these tips blurred into background noise, well-meaning but unsubstantiated. What remained constant were the facts. On December 15, 2016, Brianna left her mother's home in Upper Burrell Township, telling her family she was heading to rehab. The older red car that picked her up, possibly a Chevrolet Cavalier, has never been found. The woman driving it, described as a heavy-set white female with curly blonde hair, has never been identified. Her phone went silent the same day. There's no proof she made it to Pittsburgh. No bank activity, no hospital records, no verified communication since that afternoon. In interviews years later, the Upper Burrell Township police chief admitted what the family had long feared. Foul play was likely. He said investigators believed Brianna didn't disappear by choice. Someone out there knows what happened, he told reporters. We just need them to talk. Despite renewed coverage in later years, from the Charlie Project, Uncovered, and missing person advocacy sites, the case remains unsolved. Her mother continues to hope for a call, a clue, anything. It's been years since Brianna's smile lit up that small home in Upper Burrell. And yet, somewhere between that driveway and Pittsburgh, her trail simply vanished. What's the one missing detail you think could break this case wide open? Months turned into years, and the case of Brianna Hughes began to fade from headlines. There were no arrests, no confirmed sightings, and no trace of the red car that took her away on December 15, 2016. For her family, the hardest part wasn't just the loss. It was the silence that followed. The Upper Burrell Township Police Department kept the investigation open, but admitted they had little to go on. Detectives re-interviewed witnesses, checked nearby surveillance cameras again, and revisited leads that had once seemed promising. Nothing new emerged. The same few facts kept circling back like ghosts. Brianna, 32 years old, left her mother's home to seek help, entered a red car driven by an unknown woman, and was never seen again. Her case became part of a growing list of missing women in Pennsylvania who vanished without a trace. No confirmed foul play, yet no sign of life either. In interviews, her mother spoke of the lingering pain. I keep expecting the phone to ring, she said once. Even now, every time I hear a car outside, I think maybe it's her. Community members and online advocates refused to let Brianna's story disappear completely. The Charlie Project profiled her case, preserving her details and photograph. Uncovered.com and Disappeared blog published summaries that kept her name searchable for anyone who might know something. Local pages in Pittsburgh and Westmoreland County continue to share her missing poster. Brown hair, hazel eyes, the tattoo on her chest that reads, "Breathe." Still, there have been no breakthroughs. The red car remains unidentified. The woman who drove it remains unknown. But hope, however faint, endures. As long as her family continues to speak her name, there's still a chance that one person, one witness, one overlooked memory might bring her home. Do you believe someone in Pennsylvania still knows exactly what happened that day and has simply stayed silent all these years? If you want to help keep Brianna's story alive, like, share, and subscribe. It helps more people learn her name and keeps attention on cases that still need answers. In the years after Brianna Hughes disappeared, her mother became the quiet heartbeat of the search. Every day started the same. Checking old emails, rereading police reports, staring at her daughter's photo as if the answers might surface between the lines. When the police updates stopped coming regularly, she refused to give up. She called detectives, local news outlets, and missing person organizations. If one agency couldn't help, she'd contact another. Her determination kept the case alive when the system began to move on. But persistence had its cost. There were long stretches of silence. Weeks when no one returned her calls. Months when tips led nowhere. Still, she never stopped. "I just want to know what happened," she once told a reporter. "Even if it's bad news, at least it's something." Her voice carried through every post shared online. Facebook, Missing in Pennsylvania, and pages dedicated to unsolved disappearances. She reposted the same image over and over. Brianna's soft smile, her hazel eyes, and the faint view of her tattoo reading, "Breathe." For her, that word had become both a reminder and a plea. Every December, as the anniversary approached, she'd contact the Upper Burrell Township Police Department again, hoping for progress. The case remained active, but investigators admitted they were limited without new evidence. There were no new witnesses, no new leads. The red car and its mysterious driver had seemingly vanished from the face of the earth. Despite the frustration, her mother's determination began to inspire others in Pennsylvania's missing person community. Families who'd endured the same nightmare reached out, offering support. They understood the loneliness that comes when a case fades from public view, when the world forgets but you can't. Nearly a decade later, that's still her mission, to make sure no one forgets Brianna. Because until there are answers, the silence isn't peace, it's torment. How long would you keep searching if it were someone you loved who vanished without a trace? By the time 5 years had passed since Brianna Hughes vanished, her file had been reopened, reviewed, and refiled more times than her mother could count. Technically, the case was still active, but in reality, it had drifted into that quiet space law enforcement calls cold, where evidence has run dry, witnesses have moved on, and leads have dissolved into memory. The Upper Burrell Township Police Department, though committed, was small. They lacked the resources of a larger city force. Detectives rotated in and out of the case, each one revisiting the same handful of documents. Witness statements, vehicle descriptions, and the original missing person report. They had never recovered any clothing, belongings, or credible physical evidence connected to Brianna. They had requested help from state police, hoping their broader network might uncover something new. But without fresh tips, even that effort stalled. Officers admitted privately that without new information, their hands were tied. In one interview, a police spokesperson said something that stuck with many who followed the case. "We haven't closed it. We can't. There's still a mother waiting for answers." And yet, the investigation's limitations were painfully clear. No verified video of the red car ever surfaced. No digital trail showed where Brianna went after leaving her home that day. There were no confirmed records of her at any rehab facility, hospital, or shelter. The geography of her disappearance made it harder too. Upper Burrell sits between rural Pennsylvania and urban Pittsburgh, a gap of quiet roads, wooded areas, and stretches with little surveillance. If something had happened to her along that route, finding evidence years later was nearly impossible. For her family, each year without answers deepened the uncertainty. Were the police still actively looking, or was her file sitting on a shelf collecting dust? As another December came and went, her mother stood outside, staring at the road where Brianna's car disappeared nearly a decade earlier. The world had changed, but that moment, that red car driving away, was frozen in time. Do you think small-town police departments should be required to hand cold cases like this over to state investigators after a set time? Or should they keep control no matter how long it takes? When official leads dried up, the internet quietly took over. In online forums and social media pages dedicated to missing persons, the name Brianna Jade Hughes kept resurfacing. People who had never met her began piecing together what little information existed. Photos, old articles, police reports, and archived posts from her mother. Web sleuths discussions, Facebook groups like Missing in Pennsylvania, and profiles on Uncovered.com and the Charlie Project became her digital footprints. Each post carried the same hope, that someone, somewhere, might recognize her or remember the mysterious red car seen that day in Upper Burrell Township. Even as years passed, her case didn't completely vanish from public memory. True crime creators and local advocates occasionally revisited her story, sharing verified details, her last known sighting, her tattoo that read, "Breathe," and the description of the driver. A heavy-set white woman with curly blonde hair. The same description that still sits in her official missing person report. Online investigators analyzed possible routes the car could have taken, from Garvis Ferry Road to Route 366, connecting toward New Kensington or the Pittsburgh corridor. Some noted how isolated those back roads are, surrounded by farmland and tree lines, with limited surveillance even today. Others highlighted how difficult it would be for someone to disappear so completely in such a short span of time. These digital efforts kept pressure on the case, even when media attention had faded. Volunteers created updated missing posters, contacted journalists, and periodically checked with the Upper Burrell Township Police Department to confirm the case was still active. Though online sleuthing can't replace an investigation, it did something vital. It kept Brianna's name alive. Every share, every post, every photo meant the world to a mother still waiting for the truth. Because once a story disappears online, it often disappears in real life too, and the internet refused to let that happen. Do you believe online communities can genuinely help solve cold cases like Brianna's, or do they risk muddying the waters for investigators? For years, Brianna Hughes' story lingered in quiet corners of the internet, until a handful of true crime blogs decided to revisit it. The renewed attention came from places like Disappeared Blog, Uncovered, and regional papers that were beginning to highlight unsolved disappearances across Pennsylvania. The new coverage didn't bring breakthroughs, but it did bring light. Reporters retraced her final day using verified police details. December 15, 2016, Upper Burrell Township, a red car, and a woman no one knew. They published her description. 5 feet 2 inches, 110 pounds, brown hair, hazel eyes, and a tattoo that read "Breathe." They reminded readers she was 32 years old and had planned to enter rehab but never arrived. For her mother, the renewed attention felt like a second wind. People were sharing Brianna's poster again. Tips, most of them vague but still, began trickling back in. Someone claimed they might have seen her near a bus stop years ago. Another mentioned a woman who fit her description in a shelter, but none of the leads could be confirmed. Still, the visibility mattered. Even Upper Burrell police acknowledged that public awareness was crucial. They encouraged residents to look at Brianna's photo and reach out if they remembered anything, no matter how small. "Someone knows," the police chief said. "They just haven't spoken yet." Online, advocates began using hashtags like #FindBriannaHughes and #NeverForgottenPA, ensuring her name stayed searchable. It wasn't a case that drew national headlines, not like others with viral traction, but among those who knew her, the story carried weight. It symbolized how easily a person could vanish and how quietly justice could sleep. Her mother once said in an interview, "The worst part isn't not knowing where she is. It's knowing people have stopped asking." The renewed coverage gave her something rare, the sense that people were asking again. Do you think true crime coverage today helps families find answers? Or does it only remind them of the pain they already live with every day? If you believe stories like Brianna's deserve to stay visible until there's justice, like, share, and subscribe. Every view helps bring these cases back into focus. By 2021, it had been nearly 5 years since Brianna Hughes disappeared. The Upper Burrell Township Police Department decided to re-examine her case with fresh eyes. Cold case reviews like this don't happen often in small towns. They require time, funding, and sometimes public pressure. But Brianna's mother had never stopped calling, and that persistence mattered. The department began coordinating with state investigators from Westmoreland County and Pennsylvania State Police, hoping a new perspective might reveal something the original team missed. They went through every document again, the missing person report, the red car description, old tips, even call logs that had gone nowhere. One of the first challenges was the absence of physical evidence. There was no known crime scene. Brianna had vanished between 2 locations, her mother's home in Upper Burrell and her rumored destination near Pittsburgh. Somewhere in those 30 miles, she was lost. Investigators reviewed nearby missing persons cases from that same time frame to check for connections. Nothing matched. They also compared the car description to vehicle databases in surrounding counties. Thousands of red sedans were registered in Pennsylvania in 2016. None could be linked to Brianna's disappearance. The re-examination also included another look at her digital footprint. But time had erased most traces. Her phone was deactivated long ago. Social media accounts had gone dormant. And without new logins or activity, there was nothing to analyze. Still, the police chief made it clear. This wasn't a case they planned to abandon. "We don't close missing persons," he told reporters. "Not when we still have family waiting." The review didn't yield a breakthrough, but it did something important. It put Brianna's name back on active circulation inside law enforcement systems. Her photo and description were sent to regional agencies and missing person databases, ensuring officers statewide would be reminded of her face. It was a quiet kind of progress, not the headline her mother prayed for, but a step toward keeping Brianna from becoming another forgotten name in a file drawer. How do you think investigators can keep hope alive in cases where there's no physical evidence at all? Is it persistence, technology, or simple human memory that makes the difference? The years after Brianna Hughes vanished blurred together for her family. Birthdays, holidays, and anniversaries passed like shadows. Her mother marked every December 15th not as another year older for her daughter, but as another year without her. She refused to let Brianna fade from memory. Each anniversary, she reshared the same missing poster. Missing since December 15th, 2016, Upper Burrell Township, Pennsylvania. The same photo, Brianna's soft brown hair, faint smile, hazel eyes, and the tattoo breathe visible near her collarbone. For her mother, that image had become both a comfort and a torment. When reporters stopped calling, she reached out to them instead. She'd send updates even when there weren't any, reminders that her daughter still mattered. Sometimes the messages went unanswered. Other times, a journalist would respond with empathy, promising to look into it. Still, those brief flickers of attention were enough to keep her fighting. In local community groups, Brianna's story began to take on a quiet symbolism. People shared it as a reminder of vulnerability, how a single choice, a single ride, could change everything. Families of other missing loved ones connected with hers, offering solidarity and understanding. They knew the ache of uncertainty, the kind that never ends, only deepens. Her mother turned that pain into purpose. She attended local vigils for other missing people, sometimes standing beside families she'd never met. She'd hold candles for them too, whispering prayers not only for answers but for strength to keep asking. Her advocacy wasn't loud or political. It was steady, the kind that keeps a name from being erased by time. She believed that one day, someone would finally speak. Maybe a witness, maybe the woman in the red car, maybe a stranger who didn't realize what they'd seen back in 2016. Until then, she would keep telling Brianna's story. Because silence, she often said, is what lets people disappear twice. If someone you loved vanished, how far would you go to make sure the world didn't forget them? By the late 2010s, Pennsylvania had hundreds of open missing person cases. Yet only a handful ever made headlines. When advocates looked closer, they noticed a pattern: whose stories got attention and whose didn't. For Brianna Hughes, the coverage was limited. She wasn't a celebrity, and her life before vanishing wasn't polished or perfect. She'd struggled, as many people do, but those details often shaped public perception. Some cases drew sympathy, others drew silence. Still, her story had all the hallmarks of a mystery that should have drawn more eyes. A woman disappearing in broad daylight, a red car that no one could trace, and a mother begging for answers. Yet it never became a household name. The few articles that did appear were short, mostly reciting facts, no deeper follow-ups, no investigative series. Experts have long said that media attention can determine how far a missing person case goes. More coverage often means more pressure on police, more tips, and more accountability. But cases like Brianna's, quieter, smaller, rooted in working-class towns, often fade faster. That lack of exposure weighed heavily on her family. They saw stories of other disappearances from across the country gaining national attention. They understood why those stories mattered, but they couldn't help asking, why not Brianna too? Her name never trended, but that didn't mean people stopped caring. In small online groups and among missing person advocates, her photo still circulates. Every few months, someone new discovers her case and shares it. One more post, one more reminder. The truth is, not every disappearance gets a headline. Some rely on word of mouth, community persistence, and families who refuse to let grief go quiet. And that's what Brianna's mother has done. For nearly a decade now, she's been her daughter's only press agent, her advocate, her voice. Maybe the question isn't just who gets remembered, but who refuses to forget. Do you think media coverage should focus more on ordinary people like Brianna? Or is it inevitable that only high-profile cases capture the world's attention? In recent years, Pennsylvania has seen a quiet resurgence of interest in old disappearances. Cases that never made the news but still haunt small towns. Among them sits the file of Brianna Jade Hughes, stamped Missing Ongoing Investigation. Cold case detectives and volunteer investigators have begun working together through nonprofits and advocacy networks to review unsolved disappearances across the state. Brianna's name appears on many of their databases. Her case is considered low evidence, high urgency, meaning there are few physical clues but an urgent need to preserve what remains before time erases it completely. Retired officers who once handled similar cases say these cold files often rely on persistence rather than breakthroughs. You can't force luck, one investigator said in an interview, but you can keep the file alive long enough for luck to find you. For Brianna's mother, that persistence has become her mission. She sends periodic letters to the Upper Burrell Township Police Department, asking if they've received new information. Every few years, she contacts missing persons podcasts and local media outlets, hoping someone will take another look. Occasionally, those efforts pay off. A new article, a post shared thousands of times, a short segment on local news. Each one brings her daughter's name back into the public eye. The coverage is brief but powerful, and it reminds everyone who sees it that this isn't just a mystery. It's a life still waiting for closure. Even without new leads, Brianna's photo remains active on the Charlie Project, Uncovered.com, and Namas, keeping her searchable across national databases. For her family, that's proof that someone somewhere still cares. Because in a world filled with data and noise, the smallest sign of remembrance can mean everything. Do you think cases like Brianna's deserve dedicated cold case units in every county? Or do you believe communities themselves play the biggest role in keeping memories alive? If you want to keep her story in the light where it belongs, like, share and subscribe. It helps more people discover her name and remember those who never made it home. By 2022, nearly 6 years had passed since Brianna Hughes was last seen. While official progress had stalled, the digital community had only grown louder. Across social media and true crime forums, online investigators continued to piece together her timeline, not with new evidence, but with renewed purpose. Web-based archives like Namas, Uncovered.com, and the Charlie Project ensured that Brianna's case would never vanish entirely. Each listed the same facts. A last seen on December 15, 2016, leaving her mother's home in Upper Burrell Township, Pennsylvania. They entered an older red car, possibly a Chevrolet Cavalier, driven by an unidentified white woman with curly blonde hair. Destination unknown. She was reportedly heading to rehab but never arrived. Her profile, preserved across these databases, became a quiet digital monument. Anyone searching her name would find her photo, warm smile, brown hair, hazel eyes, and that small tattoo that said, "Breathe." Online volunteers began mapping potential travel routes between Upper Burrell and Pittsburgh's Homewood neighborhood, the area where she was last rumored to have visited. They compared distances, timelines, and possible camera placements along Route 366. Even if the data didn't lead to a discovery, it helped document how thorough the search had been, a record for future investigators to build upon. Through Facebook groups and missing persons advocacy pages, people kept Brianna's story circulating. Whenever another case from Pennsylvania went viral, members would comment, "Don't forget Brianna Hughes." She's still missing. Her case had become part of a larger movement, one that insisted every missing person, regardless of background or attention level, deserved the same effort. To many advocates, she wasn't just another statistic. She was proof that persistence, even online, could outlast silence. Somewhere, someone might still remember that car or the woman driving it. The internet's reach gave that possibility a pulse. Do you think digital communities could one day replace the role of traditional investigators in keeping cold cases active? Or should their work always remain a support to law enforcement? Time has a way of erasing details, softening memories, and burying answers, but in Brianna Hughes' case, it has done the opposite. Each passing year seems to sharpen the question. How does a 32-year-old woman vanish without a trace in daylight? By 2023, the National Missing and Unidentified Persons System, NAMUS, still listed her as active and unresolved. Her photo remained the same, the one her mother had given police in 2016. The same photo used on every flyer, every article, and every online post. Her description hasn't changed. 5'2", 110 pounds, hazel eyes, brown hair, a tattoo reading "Breathe." Last seen leaving her mother's home in Upper Burrell Township, Pennsylvania, entering an older red car driven by a white woman with curly blonde hair. That woman has never come forward. No one has ever identified her, and the car has never been found. The official records contain no further confirmed sightings, no forensic evidence, no personal belongings recovered. It's as if Brianna's story hit an invisible wall the moment that car pulled away. And yet, time itself has become both her greatest obstacle and her remaining hope. As years go by, people who once stayed silent might begin to speak. Relationships change. Consciences shift. Old secrets sometimes resurface when least expected. That's what investigators and families of the missing rely on. The idea that truth doesn't disappear. It just waits for the right moment to be told. Her mother continues to remind the world that Brianna was more than her case file. She was a daughter, a sister, and a woman trying to rebuild her life. The pain of not knowing hasn't lessened, but her mother's voice has grown stronger, determined to outlast the years that threaten to bury her daughter's name. Because as long as time moves forward, there's still a chance that someone will remember that day in December 2016 and finally pick up the phone. Do you think time helps solve mysteries like Brianna's by changing people's hearts? Or does it make the truth harder to reach as the years fade away? In Pennsylvania, the pain of missing loved ones connects families like invisible threads. The faces change, but the ache is the same. A quiet, relentless grief that never fades. Brianna Hughes became one of many women across the state whose disappearances remain unsolved. Their names whispered at vigils and printed on fading flyers. In towns like Johnstown, Erie, and New Kensington, other families began reaching out to Brianna's mother. They knew her struggle, the long silences, the unanswered calls, the feeling of being forgotten once the headlines moved on. Together, they shared advice, contacts, and emotional support. When one family held a remembrance walk, another would show up with candles. These gatherings weren't just about mourning. They were about solidarity. They reminded the world that each missing person represented an unfinished story. For Brianna's mother, standing alongside other families offered both comfort and sorrow. Comfort because she wasn't alone, and sorrow because so many others were living the same nightmare. Advocates began organizing social media campaigns that highlighted multiple cold cases at once. They called them Voices of the Missing. On those posts, Brianna's face often appeared among dozens of others. Different ages, backgrounds, and hometowns, but bound by the same silence. The renewed collaboration between families brought small victories. Some cases gained new attention. Others received updated investigative reviews. And while Brianna's file still held no new evidence, her story helped push the message that every disappearance matters, not just the ones that make national headlines. Her mother once said, "When I see another mother's face, I see myself. I know that pain, and I know we're all still waiting for that one call." Across Pennsylvania, these families have become the voice that refuses to fade. They speak for the ones who can't, and for those like Brianna, whose stories remind us that behind every missing person photo is a heartbeat still echoing through someone's life. What do you think? Should every state have a dedicated network connecting families of the missing so no one has to search for answers alone? It's now been almost a decade since Brianna Jade Hughes vanished. Her mother still lives in the same home where she last saw her, the same driveway where that red car waited on a cold December 15, 2016. Nothing about that day has faded for her. The sound of the engine, the wave goodbye, the promise that Brianna would call soon. The Upper Burrell Township Police Department still lists her case as open and active, though progress has been slow. Over the years, detectives have chased dozens of tips, all dead ends. None have revealed who the white, heavy-set woman with curly blonde hair was, or why Brianna trusted her enough to leave with her that afternoon. In every missing person directory, NAMAS, the Charlie Project, Uncovered.com, Brianna's name remains. Her entry is simple and devastating. Missing since December 15, 2016. Circumstances unknown. Those 3 words, circumstances unknown, have come to define nearly 10 years of silence. Her mother's search hasn't stopped. She still calls the police station each December. She still reprints missing posters when the old ones fade. Sometimes she places them near shopping centers, sometimes along back roads that lead toward Route 366, the road where the red car disappeared. She says she does it so people won't forget. Local advocates and online groups continue to share her photo. Every time the story is reposted, someone new discovers her case. That, her mother says, is hope enough to keep going. As of today, no one has been arrested or publicly named as a person of interest. There's still no evidence of where Brianna went or what happened after she left that house. But the question remains, someone knows. Maybe it's the driver of that car. Maybe it's someone who saw something small and never realized its importance. Do you believe that after all these years, there's still a chance for answers? Or has the truth about Brianna's disappearance been buried by time and silence? If you want her story to reach more people who might recognize her or remember that red car, please like, share, and subscribe, because the more eyes that see her name, the closer we might come to finding the truth. Nearly 9 years have passed since Brianna Jade Hughes vanished, but in Pennsylvania's circle of cold case advocates, her name still carries quiet weight. Her disappearance, unsolved and painfully ordinary, has become a symbol of persistence, of how one family's refusal to give up can keep a case from slipping into history. Families of the missing often describe time as both a thief and a teacher. For Brianna's mother, it taught endurance. Year after year, she continued to write to legislators, urging them to strengthen Pennsylvania's missing person procedures, faster alerts, broader cooperation between small-town departments and the state police, and better tracking in national databases. Her story, shared through vigils and advocacy campaigns, reminded others that missing adults deserve the same urgency as missing children. Too often, families hear, "She's an adult. Maybe she left by choice." But as her mother always says, adults have the right to disappear, but that doesn't mean they all choose to. In 2023, several Pennsylvania lawmakers began discussing improvements to statewide cold case coordination, inspired by families like hers. Though these changes weren't directly linked to Brianna's case, her name appeared in community letters and awareness drives that pushed for reform. Every policy mention, every advocacy meeting, every tweet from a volunteer using her hashtag kept her story alive. Her mother never called herself an activist, but her persistence made her one. She's part of an unspoken network of parents and siblings who meet in online groups, share resources, and comfort each other through anniversaries and dead ends. Together, they remind law enforcement that every missing person is still someone's whole world. And though no new clues have surfaced, Brianna's photo continues to circulate through national systems, a face preserved in time, waiting to be recognized. To her mother, that persistence is victory enough for now, because silence is powerful, but so is the refusal to stop speaking. If this were your daughter, how long would you keep fighting to make sure her name wasn't forgotten? 9 birthdays, 9 Christmases, 9 years of waiting for a knock that never came. That's what life has been for Brianna Hughes' mother since her daughter stepped into that red car on December 15, 2016 and vanish somewhere between Upper Burrell Township and Pittsburgh. The human heart isn't meant to live in uncertainty this long. Yet somehow she keeps going, one phone call, one prayer, one new flyer at a time. Her house has become a kind of museum of hope. On one wall hangs Brianna's photo, the same one shared across the internet, beside clippings from the Charlie Project and Uncovered.com. Another corner holds boxes of missing posters, each one carefully stacked and ready to be handed out again. She still calls the Upper Burrell Township Police Department every year. The officers know her voice immediately. There's not always something new to say, but she says she just needs to hear that her daughter's name is still on their books, that it's still active, not forgotten. Sometimes, she drives the same stretch of Route 366, tracing the path the red car would have taken that day. She looks at the side roads, the wooded turns, and wonders which direction her daughter went. Every mile feels like a question with no answer. She's learned to live between hope and heartbreak, to believe Brianna could still be out there, but also to brace for the possibility that she may never know what happened. The not knowing, she once said, is the hardest kind of pain. You can't heal what you can't understand. Still, she keeps her daughter's name alive. Every post, every mention, every small act of remembrance pushes against the darkness that silence brings. Because as long as people remember, the story isn't over. Would you keep searching if years had turned into decades? Or would you finally try to make peace with not knowing? Even after all these years, Brianna Hughes' name continues to echo quietly through Pennsylvania's cold case community. Her story has become a reminder, not just of what was lost, but of what persistence can preserve. At the Upper Burrell Township Police Department, her file remains active. Investigators occasionally revisit the case, checking whether new technology or cross-agency cooperation might yield something fresh. DNA systems have advanced, databases have expanded, and information sharing between small and large jurisdictions has improved. Yet, no new evidence has surfaced. The trail still ends where it began, the driveway of her mother's home on Garvis Ferry Road, December 15, 2016. Law enforcement continues to encourage the public to come forward with any detail, however small. Even a memory of a red car seen that day could matter. Police still list Brianna on NamUs, the Charlie Project, and Uncovered.com, ensuring her case stays visible to anyone who might stumble across her name. It's a lifeline, one that keeps her from fading completely into the background of unsolved disappearances. For Brianna's family, the investigation has never truly ended. They've learned that progress sometimes means patience, that justice in cold cases can arrive years after everyone else has stopped watching. The hope is that one day, someone who knows the truth will finally decide to speak. In Pennsylvania's missing person circles, Brianna's case is often cited as an example of how small-town investigations can linger quietly, sustained only by the love of those left behind. Advocates now push for broader cold case legislation, stronger funding, digital archiving, and cooperation across counties. So cases like hers aren't left to depend solely on chance. Because no matter how much time passes, what happened to Brianna Hughes still matters. She is one of hundreds across the state whose faces remind the world that missing is not the same as forgotten. Do you think one witness, one new memory, could still change everything for this case? Even after nearly a decade of silence? Even after all these years, the case of Brianna Jade Hughes refuses to settle into quiet. The echoes of her absence still resonate in her children, her community, and every tip line that remains open. In the years following her disappearance, Brianna's children have grown up with a missing mother. They carry her name, her stories, and her mystery in their lives. For them, Mom is both a personal memory and a public case. Her mother, siblings, and extended family have made preserving Brianna's memory a mission. Birthdays are bittersweet, holidays incomplete, but her portrait stays on the mantle. They speak of her in present tense. She would have laughed here. She'd want this. Back in Pennsylvania, the Upper Burrell Township Police Department has revisited the case when resources allowed. With advances in cold case work, they've consulted with state crime labs, checked whether DNA databases, like Cody's, have new matches, and shared remastered crime scene data with neighboring jurisdictions. The case files have been circulated more broadly than ever, so more detective eyes see the same photos of that red car, the tattoo, breathe, and witness statements. In local missing persons networks and nonprofits, Brianna's story is often cited as a caution. How possible vulnerability and aid, going to rehab, accepting a ride, can become tragedy when trust is broken. Her image appears in awareness campaigns, on posters in small towns, in digital archives, and in cold case roundups for Pennsylvania. Some small wins have happened. A few old tips previously dismissed were re-examined under new technology. One tip led detectives to revisit a rural property in Westmoreland County for possible vehicle traces. Another prompted renewed public outreach, radio spots, social media reminders, asking anyone who remembers that red sedan back in 2016 to step forward, even anonymously. Yet none of that has led to a definitive breakthrough. The red car remains unidentified. The driver is still unknown. No proven link has emerged. Still, there's a sense among the family and advocates that every bit of renewed interest is a breathing life into the case. Every share, every view, every phone call to police keeps the trail from going cold completely. Brianna Hughes didn't vanish into thin air. Someone knows what happened on that warm August day in 2016. Someone knows where she went after stepping into that red sedan. And someone may be carrying the truth in silence. What makes Brianna's case so haunting isn't just the lack of answers. It's the trail of unfinished moments she left behind. A young mother with a second chance at life. A family that never gave up hope. A future she never got to finish. Her disappearance became more than a missing person case. It became a symbol of how easily someone can be forgotten by systems, overlooked by justice, and abandoned by those who should have cared most. But Brianna was not invisible. She mattered, and she still does. Her children are growing up, asking questions that deserve answers. Her mother still sets out flyers and checks in with police. Every year that passes is another year of waiting, of wondering, of hoping someone finally speaks. Could take one tip, one person with a memory, one phone call. In the world of unsolved cases, time is the enemy, but it can also be an ally. People change. Guilt grows. Secrets slip. What's hidden can still come to light. So we end where we began, with a name. Brianna Jade Hughes. Mother, daughter, sister, missing. Round pushpin if you know anything about her disappearance. Even the smallest detail, contact the Upper Burrell Township Police Department or Westmoreland County detectives. Her family deserves peace. Her children deserve the truth. What do you believe happened to Brianna Hughes? Candle, drop your thoughts in the comments. Your voice could help bring answers. Do you think someone close to her knows more than they're saying? Like, share, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so we never forget the names behind the headlines.